Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you a study not of the natural or of the supernatural, but of the obvious. Scientists have made discoveries about humanity which we once thought we already knew. To boldly go where we have already gone before, all will become apparent by the end.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you there. Don't know why you're in my house. The internet is a great repository of knowledge, isn't it? My friend really hates his vegetables, but his caring family... I'll get a new one. But his caring family are trying to make sure he eats healthy in the face of his displeasure. And it all comes down to nature versus nurture, doesn't it? Was he born an asshole, or did he have asshole thrust upon him? For the sake of this discussion, we're leaving out the topic of his exes. You know how when you offer kids vegetables, they're all like, "Ew, I don't want that. Help, stranger danger." Well, it turns out there's a reason for this. Well, two reasons is you probably shouldn't offer strange children vegetables. Mall security doesn't like that very much. The second is a set of genes, which makes children hate vegetables. I don't mean like a set of West 49s with mind-controlled denim. I mean biological genes found deep within your DNA. Which, according to the internet, is this mythological thing which, when fucked with, leads to superpowers. So, according to an article titled "Hating Greens and Taster Genes, The Bitter Truth." God, that sounds like a bad movie. The sequel would probably be "Hating Greens and Taster Genes 2, Revenge is Sweet." This, of course, was on the ever-popular website, The Brain Bank Northwest, which we're all so familiar with. It's kind of like the Facebook for people who get lost in random internet articles and never really find their way out. They would call those old people. Anyway, according to this article, a group of scientists, those are the dorky people that know things, they did an experiment in 2006 on taste and how it affects vegetable consumption. There's a chemical with a really long name called PROP. Well, it's abbreviated as PROP. PROP is actually a really short name. So, and the perceived bitterness of PROP varied from person to person. It was always bitter, but some people tasted it more. The variation based on genes that dictate whether you have functional TAS2R38 receptors. I wonder if all receptors in the body have a number. Go into a biology lab and they just read all the cell samples with barcodes. Those who tasted PROP as being horribly bitter were more likely to avoid green vegetables. Therefore, this article states that your genetics can influence whether you like vegetables. So, maybe my good friend wasn't an asshole, but I wasn't willing to accept this at face value. So I also looked at the actual study to see if the article had got it right. Because the internet, well, if you've ever been on Pornhub, you know that you'll find the same video with a million different titles, so clearly not everything on the internet is correct. So it made sense to dig deeper into the internet to find the study. I don't know if you've ever read a study, but here's the gist of it. They tell you something, but they hide it behind a flurry of unnecessarily complex language. So you have to work to understand it. Example, they continually misuse the word expectorate. Subjects were fed bitter vegetables like Brussels sprouts, kale, broccoli, and asparagus, as well as sweet foods like chocolate and marshmallows. They were free to swallow or expectorate the samples. I'm sorry, expectorate? Was the food in their fucking lungs? The scientists wanted to know if perception of bitterness influenced vegetable intake and how this related to genes. Subjects were asked to rate foods on a scale of 1 to 100, with description words next to the numbers. The rating was based on how much the participants liked or disliked the foods, and the intensity of sour, sweet, bitter, and salty flavors. 1 was barely detectable, and 100 was the strongest imaginable sensation of any kind. Isn't that a bit dramatic? Chris, why won't you eat your vegetables? 'Cause they're the strongest imaginable sensation of any kind, Mom. That would mean that eating your vegetables was a worse sensation than being spanked for not eating your vegetables. The inclusion of salty and sour was just to prevent people from putting the ratings in the wrong place. Because if they thought the food was really sour, it might affect their rating of bitter. This was because the scientists know something that we don't, and that's that we are all idiots and they don't want us messing up their stuff. The participants filled out a questionnaire about weekly food intake. The questionnaire administered was similar to what is used in nutrition surveillance. I'm not sure what nutrition surveillance is, but I'm pretty sure it involved a bunch of vegans in a van with biodegradable binoculars. The experimenters had their subjects rate intensities on some tastants. Tastants are chemicals that you taste. So, they used salt for salty, who'd have guessed, sucrose, table sugar, for sweet, citric acid for sour, and a chemical called quinine for bitter. You know, we've developed 5 flavors, basic flavors. Sweet, salty, sour, savory, which is now umami, because I guess savory didn't sound enough like something you'd shout in the bedroom. And bitter. So we have 4 good flavors, and one that we all collectively hate. Which is really good, because it's the one associated with health food, like vegetables. Seriously, evolution, you fucked up. The experimenters used an applicator to selectively stimulate parts of the participants' tongues using the tastant. Jesus, that's hard to say. Why did they do that? Think of people who have to read your study when you're doing a study. Then, after all the stimulation, the participants rinsed their mouths out with the tastant. Like they were, tasting wine on a yacht. And then expectorated, spit, not expectorated, unless this is like the weirdest way to taste anything. Jesus, that would give you a chest cough. And then rinse their mouths out with deionized water, just in case those damn ions got in the way of the flavor. People varied on how bitter they said prop was. Remember, prop is that chemical whose name I didn't tell you because it's too long and stupid, but it's prop. There were 23 non-tasters, 66 medium tasters, and 21 super tasters. It's gotta be like the weirdest superpower ever. Hold it right there, or you'll get a taste of justice. Yeah. Experimenters found that people who tasted prop as very bitter also tasted high bitterness from the vegetable samples, and more sweetness from sampled sweet foods. The media article said the subjects sampled vegetables and prop and completed a questionnaire, but left out the ever-important quinine ratio. You confused? I was, for most of the study. It wasn't defined until the very end. The quinine ratio is obviously defined as the ratio of the taste function at the tip of your tongue compared to the taste of your entire mouth. I just had to guess that for most of the study. Those with lower taste on the tip of their tongue relative to the whole mouth perceived less sweetness and less bitterness from sampled vegetables. So basically just less flavor. Maybe because they had less taste function, no matter where it is. Also, the study did not conclude that genetics are responsible for vegetable preference, but the genetics were one of a number of factors, including past experiences, that determined vegetable preference and age. And we all know that one guy who's had a bad experience with carrots. Age was also found to play a role in vegetable preference. The scientists suggested other cognitive factors, but I think we all know the real reason. It's because we can't beat our kids anymore. If they don't eat their veggies. Those who tasted prop as least bitter also tasted the vegetables as mildly sweet and reported little bitterness. Scientists concluded that vegetable sweetness and bitterness predicted vegetable intake, supporting the conclusion that ingestive behaviors result from the presence of pleasant and absence of negative oral sensations. Basically, They did this entire study to figure out people don't want to eat shit-tasting food. Boom. Now that I've talked about the conclusion of the article and the conclusion of the study and why they're both kind of dumb, let's take a second and talk about confounds. Now, confounds, if you don't know, are problems with the study that can impact the results. There's very seldom, almost never, a perfect study with no confounds. Think about that. Scientists are the people we trust to learn everything and tell us about it. And they get things wrong. I don't know about you, that scares me. These are the people we entrust to dig up all of human knowledge. I think they're the last people on Earth allowed to get things wrong. The first confound, the study only looked at healthy individuals. I find that an odd decision when you're looking at diet. What you eat only makes up your entire body, so maybe the diet maybe the diet would affect their health. In the taste test, subjects rinse their mouth out with water. Ever try rinsing your mouth out with water? Doesn't get rid of the flavor. I have trouble thinking that aftertaste didn't impact the flavor of the next food. Fuck water. They also found that those who tasted prop as most bitter also rated sweetness of sweet foods and bitterness of bitter foods as higher. Here's an idea. If they're checking all the higher boxes, maybe they're just drama queens. What did you think of that asparagus? What do you want to rate it? 100! It was the strongest imaginable sensation of any kind. God damn, I want that on my tombstone. He was the strongest imaginable sensation of any kind.
In 2006, these brave scientists unlocked mysteries previously available to mankind. This would mark a new era of flavor understanding. It was finally understood that for whatever reasons, still hidden deep within the dark shadows of the human mind, people will avoid displeasing sensations.